Good evening.
Good evening.
You are here courtside with Lawman,
And Carmen B.
and we are here to talk about criminal justice issues. And
And other social issues that may come up. Um, we want to let you know that we are an informational discussion group and podcast, and that any time that we talk about anything, we are not creating an attorney client relationship with Carmen B or myself, Lawman.
our purpose is to educate and inform the public. We do welcome you to call in at 916-443-5288 or to post questions that you may have in the chat.
Yes. Now, we're a little late getting started today, but that's okay.
That's due to technical difficulties.
Yes.
We were here and we were trying to start the process, but the computer had a different mindset.
Now, I think it was Elon Musk. He's trying to buy YouTube now. He wants to change that too. So tonight, Carmen has picked a subject, and it's something that's happened in her home state, and it is all about the shooting of Patrick Lyoya. Now, this happened in Michigan, and the video has now been released by the officers of what's going on, the body cam. But what's more important is probably the video from his friend, who apparently was still in the car at the time, or at least he was a ample distance away, but yet um, got a great shot of what exactly happened. So we started off with a traffic stop once again. We start off with an unarmed individual once again. And once again, there's an attempted custody and taking of a person in custody. There is the use of a taser, and then there's the use of a weapon. And this time, when the use of the weapon have occurred, the boy is shot in the head. So, Carl, let's lead off the show. What do you want to talk about first? What do you think? Just police shootings in general, or go right to this one, or compare this one to the 852,000 others that may have occurred?
Again, this is another sad day. There is another black man who won't be going home to his family. His family won't get to see and hug and be with him in this world again. And the question has to be why? What happened in this scenario? First, why is the officer stopping the car to begin with? My
Now,
understanding is that there was some minor, again, minor traffic violation. A minor traffic violation, whether it was the wrong sticker or the car not being registered, it was a minor traffic violation.
now let's stop there though, because we got to talk about, can officers pull you over for minor traffic violations?
And certainly, they can pull you over for a minor traffic violation,
What do we call
but
that?
that should not end result in the end of a person's life.
But before we get there, Carm, let's take this step by step so people understand. Traffic violation, getting pulled over, not an uncommon event. It is part of the duty of officers. So if your registration is out, if you're driving bad, you run a red light, pull you over. That's called reasonable suspicion to detain. And once they detain, then can an officer ask you to get out of a car? You see, what happens next is also has to also be backed up by probable cause, either to search a vehicle or to have you leave the vehicle for what's called a pat down search. And that only if the officer can articulate that the individual has a weapon, the individual may be a danger to the officer. And in those cases, he may search in a limited fashion by patting down the individual. And when that stop occurs, both the driver and the passenger can be subject to this detention for a pat down. But it's clear, and there's new California law, that in order to do that, the officer should articulate reasons why they feel in danger. Now, here, from what I see in the video, there is a point in time when he's standing at his door and they're talking about something in the car. There's another guy in the car, and the officer is standing next to him. And something goes wrong to where he walks away. And the officer says, no, don't go away.
And well, when he walks away, this he doesn't actually walk a far distance. He just walks a few steps away from the officer, and the officer says no. And he begins to run, and the officer then begins to chase him. Again, though, this is a traffic stop. The officer had not articulated any reason for needing to search him or to search the passenger.
However, walking away, disobeying the commands of an officer, when the officer has you detained, could be a 148 of the Penal Code, disobeying an officer's commands. It's an arrestable offense, a misdemeanor, but an arrestable offense. And in many states, and I'm not sure if Michigan or Michigan is one, you can be arrested for even traffic stops. So here we have, he walks away. He, in fact, runs when the officer tries to grab him.
So we have a comment here from Moran Tactical. In this particular case, the Michigan license tag did not match the DMV information. That is prima facie PC for detention. And we have not disputed whether or not the officer could detain him. Certainly he could detain him. But what I also know from personal experience is that with a client that I had is that DMV can sometimes have inaccurate information. I had a client who had a license plate that was issued to him by DMV. It's the plate that DMV mailed out to his residence. He had been stopped in the car on a few occasions. No officer ever told him that the plate did not match the car. But on the third occasion that he was stopped, an officer told him that that plate did not come back to the car. It came back as a non-existent plate. That's something he would have had no knowledge of.
But here's the thing. The officer didn't have to know that you were going to run a red light, didn't have to know that you were going to commit a traffic violation. But once they do know, then they're within their rights to detain. So the issue becomes he has now upped the game. Instead of staying there at the car, he walks away, then runs away. At that point, it's a 148 arrestable offense. So can an officer arrest at that time, Carl?
Well, again, this incident happened in Michigan. I've never practiced criminal law in Michigan, so I can't actually answer that question for Michigan. I would imagine that they have laws similar to what we have here in California, and that the officer would then be able to arrest him for resisting arrest. But again, my problem is in this particular circumstance where not only do you have the vehicle there and you have the driver, let's say the driver does run from you.
Yeah.
You still have the vehicle there. You still have the other individual that is in the vehicle. You have whatever information you can glean from that vehicle. So he could have let him run and he would have lived another day, and the officer could have arrested him or issued a warrant to have him arrested at a later time for the misdemeanor resisting arrest or obstructing an officer in his duties and the traffic violation.
But Carmen, let's go back to the law. The law says he doesn't have to wait that long. He doesn't have to let a person run away and stuff and catch him later. And that's not how officers are trained. You know, they are there to deal with the situation as it goes on.
Well, officers have a lot of discretion, and the officer can decide, you know what, this person has run from me. I have no reason to believe that he has a weapon. He's running away from me. There's another person that's in the car. I'm going to keep that person detained, and I'm going to call for backup. That would have been a very reasonable decision to make in these circumstances. I've seen it happen that way, and I'm quite sure you've seen it happen that way many a times where there are multiple people on scene and one of them runs. The officer will detain the person that is still standing there, allow the other person to run and call for backup and give a specific description. It wouldn't have been hard to identify this person.
But what you're saying is, then the officer has abused his discretion.
I'm saying the officer can use his discretion in ways other than immediately jumping into a physical altercation. And we know that officers can do that because we've seen them do it when they are dealing with other people. But there is apparently something about brown and black skin that makes officers immediately want to go to a hands on and a physical interaction with the person. Mr. Lyoya did not start the physical interaction here.
But he broke the law, and as the officer, I should be able to detain, grab, and arrest him. And
And you
that's
are
what the
correct.
officer is trying to
And
do.
you are correct. And if you are properly trained as an officer, you are taught numerous control holes that you can utilize to get compliance. Now, if you're a lazy officer, if you're an officer who is not properly trained,
Or if the defendant is a strong guy.
I'm sorry, the training that they are taught is specifically for dealing with all types of individuals. They're not, oh, this is a training that you can use only on petite women. But if you come across a strong guy, him, you need to immediately shoot.
Eric Gardner was a huge guy. The cop jumped on his back, and still it did nothing until the rest of them brought him down. So all I'm saying is, if the officer can use force to detain, then how did he go wrong doing that?
Because the force that he used in shooting a young man in the back of his head when the initial stop was for a traffic stop is excessive.
What I'm saying is, we haven't gotten there yet.
We have some comments. If you ever get pulled over and the cops tell you that DMV says something you know is wrong, don't panic, don't run. And that is great to say for those of us who don't have issues with autism or who aren't on the spectrum. But officers encounter all sorts of people who are going to respond in different ways. And the officer needs to be prepared to deal with that other than immediately going into force. I know a young man that I'm very concerned that if he is stopped by law enforcement and the officer physically grabs him, that he may react to that because it's a natural human reaction to prevent someone from trying to physically harm you.
But you
We have
must,
another
but
comment from Cheryl B. The
yeah,
description of the individual is in the video from the
right,
vehicle or of the police officer's camera.
right.
That is clear. Not only is the description there, there is a clear full
Got a
face
license plate.
view. And we know in this day and age of technology, there is the technology that exists to identify people by facial recognition.
But
And
wait a
we
minute.
know that law enforcement agencies have these devices.
But that is not what they're using when they're out there on patrol. The device is not available then.
Oh, the
Okay?
device is, I'm not saying it was available in this particular offense, but what
Right,
I'm saying is because this was a minor incident, he's running from a traffic violation.
right.
The officer had enough information that he would have been able to find Mr. Lyoya or to have another officer locate him.
When you run from an officer, it now gives the officer probable cause to believe that maybe you do have a weapon. Maybe you are hiding drugs, guns, and things like that.
Well, that seems a little different than what you've been telling our listeners all along, lawman, because
No,
you're saying if you can ask the officer, am I being detained?
that's right.
And then you can, if he says no, you
You
can
can
walk
go.
away.
Officer didn't say no here. Officer said, no, you can't go. And he continued to resist and run.
He also said, what have I done? And I
Yeah,
believe that there was some kind of a slight language barrier
mm,
between him and the officer.
he didn't say, what have I done? Not until the officer is trying to take him into custody which the officer would be
That's
doing.
not true. You watch the video before he
Oh.
runs, he does say something to the officer like, what did I do?
Where is the law that says an officer has to tell you what you've done? See, there is none. Officers don't have to tell you anything. That's why my advice is so key. Am I free to go? That's what he should have been saying. Am I free to go? And the officer would have said, no, you are detained. And then he complies. That's what I preach.
And that's great, again, lawman, if you're dealing with someone who will react in that way.
How does the officer know that?
And you know what?
How does he know that?
Here's how the officer isn't going to know that.
That's right.
Because you don't know that, that doesn't mean that you immediately jump to physical force.
Yes, it does.
No, it does not.
But what they're trained to detain a person and arrest them.
And
how can I arrest you unless I use force?
No one's saying that he can't use force.
Yes.
In this case, the force that he used was excessive.
Simply because the guy did not cooperate. Right? He didn't cooperate.
No, you don't get to use excessive force because I didn't
cooperate.
Minute. You don't get to kill me.
If I ask you
don't get to kill me because I did not cooperate. That's
Carmen,
what you don't get to do.
Carmen, he did not cooperate.
I don't care. You can repeat he did not cooperate 100 million times. You don't get to kill me because I didn't cooperate.
But we haven't gotten to that
Was he threatening the officer's life when he started to run away? Answer this question.
Does the law say?
Answer this question. Was he threatening the officer's life when he attempted to run away? Yes or no?
Yes. And here's why. When a person runs from me, they may be hiding something. They may be pulling something. I'm just telling you what the officer is thinking and what he's saying.
I don't care.
He doesn't
what the
know
officer
this guy.
is thinking does not make it right.
You got to let me finish. He doesn't know if he has a mental problem. He doesn't know if he doesn't understand English. He doesn't know that he's prone to running from cops. That's the problem. How can an officer know the personality of how many million black men?
But that's why you don't immediately go to physical force. He wasn't stopping him because he was wanted on a warrant.
Wait a minute. Don't go to physical force.
He wasn't stopping him because he was wanted on a warrant.
Don't go to physical force.
He wasn't stopping him because he had committed a murder or any other crime.
All he had to do was arrest him. And the brother should have allowed them to arrest him. That's how we file lawsuits. Arrest me illegally and we sue you later. There's still going to be
a lawsuit filed, but a family has lost their son.
Because the son didn't cooperate.
Now I'm a bit shocked and surprised because we've seen people. Need I remind you of Philando Castile, who cooperated and was still killed?
Pay that man.
Pay that man doesn't undo the harm. If you kill my son, paying me is not going to bring my son back.
He is one situation, Carmen.
It's more than one situation, Keith.
No.
Yes.
Here's the problem. The problem is what this man did. I'm not going to compare it to any other people.
But you can compare it.
No, we can't.
Yes, we can, because you just told him if he complied, this wouldn't have happened. And that's not true, because we've seen instances where people comply and they still get killed.
Not really. Not really. Because even if you look at people who are driving in cars, they are driving away. They are running. Even Laquan was running. It's whether or not when they're running, are they posing a danger to the officer at that time? And that's how it's going to be viewed. That's what even the civil law is going to look at and say, what was going on at the time of the illegal use of force.
I said the excessive use of force.
And that would be illegal, right? Because the problem is,
so if what you're saying
Hold on, look at this question. The Supreme Court says you can't use force on a fleeing person.
Go ahead.
Do you agree with that?
Go ahead, lawman.
No. Is she right or wrong?
Go ahead, lawman. It depends on the circumstances.
That's right. And if a person is fleeing from officers, if a person is to just be arrested, putting your arms behind your back and cuffing you is force. That's
not the force that I'm saying was too excessive. The force that took this young man's life was the force that was excessive.
Okay. And that's because he used a gun to shoot him.
in
and
his
when he
head,
was
in
down
his
on the
head,
ground.
in his head.
But look what happens before that, Carm. What leads up to that? We always get to see the conclusion, and they always argue, but look what happens before that. And I'm just saying, in this situation, when the officer is detaining, the officer's not going to go through a checklist. Well, this guy must be upset today. Well, he's probably having a bad day and doesn't want to comply with me. That is not what they discuss in officer school. Is, hey, if he doesn't want to comply, just let him go.
Except that we have seen instances with other individuals who don't comply and the officer tries to talk to them. You actually have his friend at one point saying, he's cool, he's good,
Right.
just talk to him, just talk to him.
That's right. But training.
And this is where the officer's training fell down, because if you're an officer and you can't use the control moves that you've been taught to get this young man to comply, to cause him enough pain,
Right.
by twisting his arm,
Right.
to get him to comply,
then officer.
You are not properly trained.
But Carmen, if I'm not properly trained and it's this one officer, then how do we stop this guy? Because how many forces have an officer like this? How many? How many police forces? How many guys are going to do this? You know what you should do?
What I'm telling you.
Play this in front of cops. Play this in front of the cops and ask every cop in that room, is this what we should do?
And the majority of them are going to say, why,
no.
sure.
They're going to say, no.
Why,
maybe
sure.
I should have done something else. Maybe he should have done something else to try to do it, call in backup. That's what they're going to say. And everybody will say, this mug right here, he was wrong to go that far. But when the person is on the ground and you had to wrestle a person to the ground, you don't know if they're going to pull out a knife, a shiv, and throw, and boom, hit you. Okay?
No, if you're afraid,
you don't know.
But you know what?
But
if you're
you
afraid of
know.
that, then don't go home hands on. You put yourself in close proximity.
That's what we pay them to do, is to go out and catch people. See, and look here, people, you may think I have a position of, oh, it's okay for the cop to shoot him, but that's not true. But I'm just saying, when we have the laws in this state, we have got to be able to utilize the law to our favor. And we don't do it if, in fact, we give ourselves to them by running. Every young black man should know, you don't run, stay there so we can fight this case instead of fighting it on the street, because we're not going to win on the street.
We have another comment. Moran Tactical says, detainee being an immigrant who is unfamiliar with United States law enforcement practices. From Cheryl B., the individual was face down on the ground. The officer was on top of him. How could he be a harm to the officer from that position?
I'm not saying he was a harm. I'm saying he could have been. That's the officer's impression. And this officer, like I said, Cheryl, we should play this in front of all officers and see, do they agree with this? And they're all going to say, we don't agree with this isolated incident. And that's what they will call it. And they will say that this individual did wrong, because a lot of individuals are doing wrong. But we got to be careful in terms of operating under the law too, and we avoid the situation altogether. How come he had to get on top of the guy? You see what I'm saying? That's all I'm saying. And I don't care if you don't understand the language or anything like that. You understand something because you're here in America and you're driving a car and his buddy is talking. So his buddy could have been saying, hey, he doesn't even speak English, but he didn't say that. He's just saying, talk to him nicely. But you're asking him to talk to him nicely.
So, Moran Tactical, I believe the testimony is that the detainee was trying to get the cop's taser off of his belt. And actually, that is not true. The officer pulled his own taser out and was attempting to tase the young man.
And the man grabbed his arm so he couldn't be tased. So he tried a taser.
I don't think he actually grabbed the arm. I didn't see that. I saw him.
He grabbed the arm.
I saw him grab the taser.
Grabbing the taser.
I saw him grab the taser, not the arm. Grab the taser to push the taser.
Taser's in his arm. He's grabbing this to keep him from pulling it up so he can tase it.
That's not what I saw.
Either way, he's got a taser out because he's trying to deflate the situation with a taser. So I'm not saying, see, all I'm saying is I'm a practicer of what I preach. And that's why I preach. You got to just say, am I free to go? And if you're not, name, rank, serial number. I want to talk to my lawyer. Bring me in. Fight your battles in court. Fight them there, not on the street. Because
And so, for the people that may have a personality defects that may not be able to conform to that, they just get to be open season killed on the street.
nope, we got to do something about personality defects then and train them too on what to do with the force. You don't change the bear in the woods from stopping to attack people. You change people in learning to deal with the bear in the woods.
Well, then talk, lawman.
That's right, because that's this situation. If you got a goddamn creatures out there, you don't say, creatures, could you just, I got a little problem. Don't kill me, creature. You don't do that. Creatures kill, okay? What we do is we have to figure out a plan on how to deal with the goddamn creatures. Like, okay, smoke them out first. Do this first. Plans first to know when the creature's coming to try to kill you and stuff. We have to deal with that population like that. And that's why I'm saying I'm pulling from the roots of my people of we got to learn to deal with the bear out there in the woods. Because if we all, even in slavery days, come on, man, we tried insurrections, we tried all that stuff, but we knew in the end, look, this ain't going to work good for us in the end because it will just give them justification to mow us all down. So somebody's got to survive. So we have to be very surreptitious about it. And I'm saying we don't have to be surreptitious. What we do is we use the law against them. That's what we got to do. That's what we figured to do. So it's just like this. How old is that man? 26, 27? Has he been here 2 years, 1 year? Take a Keith class and you would know what to do. If we were all preaching the same message, you would know what to do. His friends should have known what to do. Hey, man, lay down, man. Just lay down, man. Not, hey, officer, speak to him a little differently. Can you be nice to him? Because asking the officer to be nice has never worked for anybody.
Moran Tactical states, I was discussing with a retired deputy today that high school civics courses have failed to train the public on how to interact with law enforcement during a detention stop.
It's because they're not buying the book by Keith Staten, How to Deal with Law Enforcement, and teaching that in class.
Cheryl B says NPR says that the taser use was inappropriate because the officer should not have been at a distance when they deploy it. He should have not deployed while on top of the individual.
They were actually still standing up at the time. What it was is the problem is the officer was too close to try to pull it out to deploy it. He should have taken steps backwards and then tried to use the taser.
Which again goes to his lack of training.
Did I say that cop was trained properly and was the greatest guy in the world?
You didn't, but I'm just saying
he's
again,
a fucking bear.
Another
or he's a freaking bear.
That he was not properly trained.
Then we deal with this officer. See? And we deal with the bigger issue of the training, not only of the officers, but of ourselves. Maya Angelou said, if you don't like some shit, you change you. Because if you ask them to change, they're not going to do it. Since when, we've been asking for.
What we need to do
is get on the ball.
Even if you have a relative in your family.
That's right.
Who may suffer from a personality.
How about just being black?
From autism or.
They're just black. They don't even have to be black.
That people without those issues can follow Keith Staten. Hold on.
Here's what I'm saying.
Can follow Keith Staten logic. But what
anybody, grandma, sister,
but
auntie.
You have to work with certain people where they suffer from a condition that puts them outside, for lack of a better term. I hate saying it, but outside of the norm. So what I'm saying is you need to work with your sons, with your daughters, and you need to talk to them about the way to interact with law enforcement and what to do. Again, following Keith's
the mantra, rule of thumb, which is the law.
In addition to that, what can the rest of us do?
Teach.
Right? When you see someone being stopped, and we've done this before, I know myself and Mr. Brooks have, pull over.
Watch.
Take out your tablet, your phone. Make sure that the officer knows that you are full on recording him, and sometimes that can change the interaction.
Right.
And we've seen it. There were officers who had detained a homeless man in an alley near our church some years ago. It was clear to us that he was suffering from mental issues, but he had done something, and the officers wanted to arrest him. And the officers had him detained on the ground. And here comes Billy Badass officer running up. And I just knew, had he not seen us recording, he was about to kick that man in the head with his boot. But he saw us recording and he stopped. He caught himself. And so that's another technique that we can do to try and prevent these situations from escalating to this point.
You don't change the bear's behavior in the woods. You go in the woods, the bear's going to attack you. So, since we drive on the streets and we live in this country, bears can attack us. We have to know what to do prior to the attack and during the attack. And I know it sounds like, well, because you look, you've seen the emotion of Carm over here. Okay, it messes with everybody. I'm trying not to cuss. It messes with everybody. Sure, it's tough to see, it's tough to take, but it should inspire us even more to teach, because we're not going to say, officers, you need to change, and they change. We're going to have to show young men how to deal with this situation, that you win your battle when you go home and you're able to now litigate whatever issue comes from it, whether it's a criminal issue or you got a civil issue that comes from it. We're paying off millions and billions now in lawsuits. But the only way to overturn something is to make it so that it becomes so expensive they can't operate. That's how they take down companies who build bad products. So we have to think and use the law. We have to use it against the force, the bears that are out in the woods, who, if we walk out in the woods, they don't know, hey, I'm a little bit on the spectrum. I scare easily. I run at the first thing. I can't take the stress. I got PTSD, whatever I got. The bears don't care. The bears just know you're in their ground now. So that's my word on that.
But what I will say is that it is interesting when the bears are dealing with certain people that walk into the woods, those people are given more opportunities for the situation to de-escalate.
Well, that's a racism
Bobby,
issue.
I need you to stay. I didn't say anything about race. I didn't say
People who
anything
look-
about race.
look-
I didn't say anything
Right.
about what people
Certain
look like.
people?
I said
All right.
certain people. I didn't say anything
Well,
about race.
There is a racism issue, though, too. All right.
Is there?
Yes,
Are
there
we gonna
is.
talk about it? Then talk about it, lawman.
We have 30 minutes to talk about it, and we kind of like past that part. We're going to take that up on another time.
We have one more comment. We need a law that officers that shoot people in the back of the head go to jail immediately. No ifs, ands, or buts.
And
I know if I shot
that is the
somebody in
law.
the back of the head. No, she said that an officer who does that.
And it comes down
Because he's not in jail.
Use the law, though, Carm. Use the law. What is she really saying? What she's saying is she's seeing an end result where the person is being shot there. You see? And that it doesn't automatically mean that you can actually, just prosecute because of that. There's going to be the inquiries. We're going to see the weighing and balances of what he was justified to do or not to do.
Well, if I shoot somebody, are there going to be those kind of
yes? Because you're going to
while I'm waiting in jail.
You're going to hire
while
Keith,
I'm waiting in jail,
and Keith is going to get you off on self-defense.
While I'm waiting in jail, though, I don't get to sit at home.
Nah, you're going to make your bail, Carm. You're not a danger to society. The person you killed is a piece of shit.
I guarantee you.
And therefore, I will get you out, and you will be able to fight from the outside and go home to your happy home every freaking night. That's the way it's going to work for us. If you killed someone,
I'm going to try not to kill anybody.
Thank you. Let's just be wary of the bears in the woods. But before you send your kids in the woods, you got to teach them. See, no hiking in the woods unless you know how to deal with the environment.
Yes. Cheryl B says, wait, let's see.
That
Moran
is due
Tactical
process.
says due process. Well, give
Due
officers the same
process.
due process that we give to everyone. He's responding to Cheryl B's comment about having the officer immediately go
Oh,
to jail. Because if I shoot somebody,
yeah.
I'm going to jail. They may investigate and
But
figure out, oh,
jail.
wait, it looks like Carmen was
That's
actually
right.
acting in self
That's
defense.
right.
But you know, like I know, you've
Due-
had clients who have on cases that you have won, but who sat in jail waiting for that
let's
outcome.
talk about due process just a moment. Due process just means a hearing and an opportunity to be heard. Notice and an opportunity to be heard. That is done when you set a trial, when you have your arraignment, your preliminary hearing. That is due process. We can prosecute officers, and due process will apply to them too. I'm just saying when you automatically shoot someone, like she says, in the head, specific areas, doesn't necessarily mean that they will prosecute. That is the DA's now place to do. So, where should the pressure be? Where should you be voting? For DAs who want to prosecute officers who do wrong. That's what
And
we
that
should be
brings
doing.
us around to
That's right. To an election coming up pretty soon where
here in Sacramento.
we believe that a DA who may have that kind of frame of mind is ready to take office. And her name is Alana Matthews.
Yes.
So please look into her.
Alana Matthews. I believe she just got a tweet out there. If you follow John Legend, I believe he just tweeted. I
He's
want to say
supporting
it
her.
was yesterday or the day before yesterday. His support for her. He's reviewed her campaign, her policies,
Right.
and he is supporting her.
There are many people who are supporting her.
Yes.
Lots of groups and individuals in politics and things.
And she does not have. She is being. My understanding is she's being. Of the fundraising of the other candidate is beating her 3-1, and that is why she needs the grassroots movement
That's
of
right.
the people supporting her campaign to let this county know that money, the DA's position, cannot be bought.
It all starts with your vote. Get out there, register to
Register to
vote.
vote.
Tell
Register
your
your
felon
friends
friends
and
and
your
stuff
friends and family
who have
members
criminal records,
to
even
vote, as long as they are not on
currently in prison or currently on
on
parole
parole.
from prison.
Yes.
So, other than that, get out, have them vote for these elections.
Have your neighbor talk about it with that. That's one thing. Sometimes we don't do. We don't talk politics with our family members. Now, if your
Sure.
family members disagree and they say, "Hey, I'm for the other candidate," you
Fine.
know, don't fight with them. You can say, "Well, I want you to just look at
Exercise
her
your vote.
policies and see if maybe that would change your mind about who's the right candidate."
And we probably have to close, but look, I'm very serious about that we have to teach, okay? The Bears are not going to change. They haven't changed, and every time something happens, we holler out and we get emotional. But until we start teaching our youngsters, I wish I could have been right there driving by and go, hey man, ask him, are you free to leave? Okay, if you're not, then make him have probable cause to arrest you for something and shut the hell up. And then we'll get your lawyer,
Well,
and then we move. No,
you don't
because
want
I'm
to.
gonna tell you something. No, that's what you do, Carm. I don't care that I'm not going home to eat some Captain Crunch later. That I gotta take my kid to the thing. I can't worry about that because life, like you say, is far more valuable. So I gotta deal with the bear that's in front of me. I gotta get out the damn woods, and that's the way you do it with your smartness that you exercise right then and there. Your rights that you exercise right then and there, and you know that would diffuse everything. Fine, cop. You want to take me? Let's go. Put your hands behind your back. Let him find probable cause. Because if he doesn't, that's when you win in court. That's all I'm saying. It's almost like the solution can be simple because it's all about changing our attitude towards the bear in the woods. That's what we got to do. And not expect the bear to look at us individually and say, oh, well, I see him, I see him, I see him. They ain't going to do it.
Well, we've had a very spirited discussion here tonight. We've exceeded our time period. We appreciate you spending a portion of your Friday evening with us. We remind you that we are here every Friday at 6 p.m. with Courtside with Lawman
and Carmen B.
Be safe, be safe.
Definitely.
And good night.
Good night, everyone. Bingo.